Hey everyone, welcome back to another devlog for WizardChess. As always, my name is Ben, and let's get right into it. Let me get my presentation. There we go, and then voila. So, as we can see here, this is devlog 19, and we are on version 0.7.6. The title and thumbnail and stuff might say 0.5 because that's like a more normal version number. I had to fix a bug. I'll explain that later. So we got 0.6 already. This is the July update, and you can see we have new art in the background here that is not key art done by an artist, and this is sort of in keeping with what this whole release is about. We're putting out a new biome, so spoilers, yeah, that's what this is part of the new biome, but it's like a soft launch because this isn't done yet, so we haven't got like key art, we haven't got all the ranks or anything set up for this, but we want to get it into your hands. So before I tell you what else we're going to talk about, I have to do the classic plug. If you own the game on Steam, or after this video decide that you'd like to own the game on Steam, please consider leaving a review if you've enjoyed the game, and if you haven't enjoyed the game, please come to the Discord and tell me why. We're seeing this number creep up, and it is really helpful over time on Steam just to find, like, basically all the discovery mechanisms on Steam revolve around reviews, so this is my, like and subscribe, basically equivalent for the game. So yeah, wishlist or review if you already own it, please. Okay, so now I've done selling my wares. So we have a lot to cover today, and normally I take forever to do these devlogs, and I talk, frantically the whole time, and I expect that this will be very similar to the usual format. We're going to go through all the stuff that's not the new biome first, so that's these first three items, and then once we get into the new biome, I'm basically going to just have a video of me playing it, running in the background, that I'm going to talk over and skip through, etc. So let's see how long that takes. There's a lot of clips in this one. So first up, we've been expanding both Cormag and Hiss, the two existing opponents, which are going to make the progression of their boss fights up the challenge ranks more interesting and more dynamic. So Cormag now has a new ability that he will sometimes use at different ranks, depending on where you're up to. He will summon this big sword and then a bunch of spikes. This is not the end of the improvements to Cormag, but this is an indication of how we're thinking about boss design as we go up these higher ranks in the progression. Is new elements will be introduced to the fight that make it not just the same exact thing again. I'm sure plenty of you who've played the game and unlocked all the existing ranks in it felt that it's a bit like underwhelming to keep facing the same fundamental boss fight at the end of the run. And yes, like, our game is about building up your party to get here, and so you can actually beat the boss, but it's nice to keep it fresh. So yeah, we've got some cool things planned here. I'm excited to keep working on this. It's just kind of like, now we just get to keep extending our ideas little bit by little bit. The pressure feels off on these bosses where I'm like, we can just have fun with it, and hopefully you have fun with what we're having fun with. I'm not going to play out this whole fight here because there's not a lot more to say other than that the spikes and the sword for now here. Like, Cormag uses the existing ability to buff things and make your units weaker or whatever, but really, you're doing the same thing. You're breaking the orbs, you're killing him, and he'll gain more abilities while you do it. I do nearly lose this fight, so let's skip past my shame to the desert, where we have to talk about the tourist and the luggage first. So these units have been in the game for... I might just rewind while I talk because I'm going to give a bit of preface. These units have been in the game since the last patch, I think, maybe even the one before. I've lost my memory of this, apparently. But basically, this is the unit you unlock in the desert when you get to the end of the current progression there, and the tourist comes with the luggage in your party when you get it, or if you buy a tourist, you'll get a luggage. And we've retooled the luggage completely, pretty much from last time you would have seen it. It still follows the tourist around, it still soaks up damage, but what it does, as you can see here, is it takes damage, which no other unit in the game is actually taking damage in this HP-like fashion, except for this bag currently. And when it takes damage, it gives a permanent upgrade to any adjacent tourist to the bag. So this is like a little, a goodie bag, I guess, that as the enemies beat it up, you can get good stuff out of it. And it will give buffs to adjacent friendly units as well. So temporary upgrades to adjacent friendly units and permanent upgrades to adjacent tourists when it gets hurt. But once it's broken, it's broken. You can give it defense upgrades to heal it, technically. So if you really love your luggage, that's a possible pro tip for you. So yeah, this is really... honestly, this is like a little bit of extra flavor that I think we needed to give the tourist an interest factor other than the luggage. Now it can be quite strong, as you can see. We've gotten quite a lot of stats over this fight by earning rewards from our luggage. I can also talk about, while we're here, the hunter has had a little retool as well. Not as dramatic, but now, if you saw, I can actually go back. Here. No? Here, yeah. See, Covetous +2 attack in this tooltip here. This means that you currently have no Vim, right? And the hunter, when you have less Vim than it has skill, so it has 2 skill here, then you gain the difference between your Vim and the skill of the hunter in attack. So right now I have 0 Vim, 5 pending after this fight, and 2 skills, so I have 2 attack buff. If this had 10 skill and I had 0 Vim, it would have 10 attack. But if I earn any Vim, then that starts going down, right? So that's basically... It turns the hunter into a Vim unit, like Vim-oriented unit on all fronts. It can mark units to get extra Vim from them when they are defeated, and it is made weaker when you gain Vim, but it wants Vim in terms of like its character archetype. Basically, the idea is that it becomes contented when it gets paid, and it doesn't feel the need to hunt anymore. So yeah, I think... Personally, we've been playing with these little tweaks for a while now, and I think they just make both units better. Like, full stop, they are more useful, they're more interesting, more dynamic, so I think they needed this to get their identities a bit more fully formed and to make them strong enough to be, you don't want to be bummed out when you get a hunter in the party, which is kind of how I'd been feeling, and that's never the feeling you want in a game when you get a new unit. So, moving on. This is blistering pace, I know, but... this is dev mode, by the way, which is why you can see the whole board. See, it says dev mode active down here. I will mention this again later if I remember to actually talk about the bug I just fixed before this video. But what I wanted to show you here, I just talked over the whole clip, but we've rebalanced the layout of the desert biome. So there's now 4 of these mazes and shops guaranteed in the corners out here. The rest of this layout is also completely random, but there'll always be shops in the corners. This is just to fix the problem with the desert where you could be a little bit resource poor and there was just no way to get those resources. And you can get really Vim rich in the desert, but you couldn't do enough with it. So we had to put in a couple of shops. I'm not going to go too deep in the design, but the desert's not meant to be about shops, but without any shops, this game can feel a bit like you have no control of what's happening. So we're still balancing this stuff, and we haven't yet done this, but I think it would make sense to augment the way the board layout changes based on the rank of the opponent too. There's some exciting stuff we could do there, and we have started thinking about that, so stay tuned for that. It's not the end of the story yet, the way we've done this, basically, but just to show you that, like, we are releasing this new biome, but the existing biomes are still getting, both deeper and broader over time, so don't think that this is a game where when you've, just played every rank once while we're in early access, that's kind of done. It might be interesting to replay these things and go back, especially because the runs are pretty short in our game. It doesn't take long to find out. So, all that said, if you have watched any of these videos, you own the game or whatever, and you've played all the existing challenges and you just want to go to this new biome, how do you unlock it? So right now the answer is that you beat Cormag or you beat Hiss at rank D, and you will unlock Arabella, the FaeQueen, at rank C. That's not how it will work in the final game. You'll have to beat both of them, not just one of them. I'm doing this partially because I don't want to have to write the code to check the more complicated constraint right now, and also because in early access, I think it's useful to get input from everyone as quickly as we can. I don't want to lock everyone out of experiencing this biome just because they haven't played every single level of every challenge so far. Feedback could still be useful from lots of kinds of players in this situation. So, yeah, if you know what, I'll talk about this now. The bug I was talking about earlier that I fixed in 0.7.6 instead of 0.7.5 was that we had a little save file mistake on my part that meant that some people might have had their ranks set back on a couple of the opponents a little bit. I've put out a fix that should hopefully catch this for most people, but in the case that it doesn't, you can activate developer mode, which I alluded to before. And I've explained this in the Discord, but I'll say it out loud here too. If you hold tilde, so backtick or tilde on your keyboard and press /, you'll enter dev mode. You can play any rank using that. So if you just want to get to this and try it immediately, I'm just telling you, you can just go and try it immediately with dev mode. Okay, enough talking. So the Fae Biome. This is like a 20-minute video, I think, behind me here, so I'm probably going to have to skip through it to get to different parts. You can see here we have a random unit in our party. That's what I was pointing the mouse cursor at. So you start here, and this unit on the far left is random each time you start, and they have a random trait. So you'll see this, but the Fae Biome is sort of about, not randomness, but about keeping you guessing and changing things constantly. So here's a standard encounter in this place. You've got water, which is basically the obstacles of this area, and you've got bridges and you've got land. There's not really any environmental threats in this biome. Oh, I want to talk about this. I set so much stuff up in this demo for me to talk over. You can adjust the gameplay speed. Here, I realized my gameplay speed was at 4 times the normal speed, which leads to this annoying damage number bug that I still have to hunt down. If I turn the gameplay speed back down now to 1 times, the damage numbers behave. So, look, we'll fix that bug at some point. These encounters, there's not that much to say. Obviously, all the enemies in these are new. I'm not going to go over every single enemy in the new biome because, like, that's kind of the point of playing the game. And it will take me about 40 plus minutes, I think, just to do that bit. So, yeah, there's a lot of new stuff in this area. And mostly what it's about is that each room, you will be using a different party to the previous combat encounter you did, most likely. How does that happen? Well, through lots of rooms like these. So there's a cursed deal here, which is new, a henge room, which is new, and combat, which we all know and love. Good old family combat. So if you go to the henge room, there's only one of these per run, and it's at the start. And you have these 3 statues here, one for each of the bosses. It does say Pit of Suffering when you put your mouse over it. That's not supposed to happen. You can pick one of these statues and you can sacrifice a unit in its image. And what that does is opaque to the player, except that you can find out through experimentation what the differences are between these. I picked the FaeQueen because we're facing the FaeQueen, and you can see I got a bunch of units out of that. So this is like a really big... My party just changed a lot, and I got a lot of units. I got enemies, in fact. This is... normally, Sheldon is an enemy, and normally the Frog is an enemy, but we have control of them. And I just took my werehorse out the door. I'm being too tricky to narrate, apparently, in this. Moving too fast. So... Now, I think I'm just going to use these units for some combat to talk about them a little bit. There's a lot of new units that you won't have had access to before in the Fae Biome because of this system. You have a pool of units that only appear in the Fae Biome through that henge room interaction. Then you've also got control of enemy units in this biome, of a selection of enemy units that you can end up owning, plus all of the existing units from the rest of the game, obviously. So you have a really, really dynamic party in this biome by comparison, and to me, this is the fun of it. It's almost like re-roll the entire game every turn. Like, you know the D100 in Isaac kind of vibe, where you just like, okay, I want it to be different now. We give you a lot of ways to achieve that. So here you can see me being tricky and trying to use my units to some like decent effect, but you'll see after we get out of this combat room, in fact, I will just skip ahead because I was putting a lot of effort into trying to get this chicken to do some damage, just because I thought it'd be funny, but it takes ages, so let's not bother. I get my rewards. Yeah, let's get these. I made my dog better. Nice. So if we go to, I'm assuming I go to a cursed deal. Yeah, a cursed deal. Do the small one. Do the small one. Past me. Yes. Okay, so the cursed deal, pretty minimalistic room right now, but you have basically this pink and blue choice thing where you have to pick, like, basically it's like, these things aren't wholly good or bad. That's the main idea behind it. That's why it's a cursed deal, where it's good to reroll all the traits in your army. This would change to something else, but my Merc's attack will go down, which is kind of lame. This one, invert all traits. So that means if you have a trait, lose it. If you don't have one, get it. This is very powerful for us, but we make our deal worse. So, oops, I went forward a slide. Let's go back. I have done something terrible. Let me get back to the cursed deal. Sorry. We were doing it live, and that's the benefit and the detriment. So, if I choose this one, it will give me a lot of traits. I assume I chose it. Yep. So now we have a load of new functions on these units, and this party is actually going to start doing things that I, won't understand because of how much just changed in that interaction. And that's sort of also stylistically, we want you to feel a bit like you're on the back foot in this biome. Like, it's never quite predictable what's going to happen next. And that contributes, sorry, the enemies contribute to this as well with their different abilities and the way that they scale up. So, for example, here you can see there's a lot of them. These guys with the swords and the shields are called Hercs, which are mercs, but they're the husk version of mercs. And there are husk versions of all sorts of units in this biome, as well as ghosts and mimics, and I think this is a Ret Inferno, or it's a Fireis. Fireis, there you go. So Fireises and Ret Infernos can trade stats with other units permanently. There's a unit called the Traitor that can swap traits with other units. So you might start to get the impression that there's a lot of ways for things to change constantly. And look, for some people it might be annoying because of how numerical this biome can end up being as a result. You actually need to be really aware of the game mechanics. But I mean, in the vision of this game being like, getting as insane as Magic the Gathering or something, like, I kind of like that the rules get really complicated and you just have to know and you have to really like reason it through. That's an aesthetic thing. I know it's not going to be for everybody, but if you've been following this devlog for a while, I tend to make, we tend to make decisions that are like based on our taste, even if it would preclude people from liking our game. We want to make it the best version of what we're trying to make. And that might mean that it's like a little bit intimidating for your average player, but I don't know. I think that this biome honestly feels like it's brought the spirit of the game out into the version of it we always saw. Like, the insanity, the quirkiness, the like, I can't believe I'm even controlling enemies, the constant turnover, it's all part of, to us, WizardChess is supposed to be like the psycho chess. Like, you're not really playing a game of strategy, it's chaos strategy, right? Like, it's both parts. And in the earlier parts of the game, to make it legible, to make it so you can actually learn the mechanics, we have basically drastically simplified from the vision. Like, what's in the Fae biome is sort of the vision we had when we started the game, and we've actually had to go backwards and build up from like very first principles how to teach each layer of the mechanics and progression. And that's also probably obvious if you watch these devlogs. That's what we've been doing, is going back a lot to like put in more care to guide players earlier in the experience, because despite the fact that to me this is like, the real WizardChess starts here type content in this biome. I want to talk about the shops. Let me just did it again. If the fact this is supposed to be real WizardChess starts here type content in this biome means that like you can't just throw people into that out of the gate and expect anyone to have a good time when we basically came up with a novel board game and a bunch of rules, right? That like they just need to be explained, and it's been really hard to balance the fun against the explanation. But it feels like we're getting better at the progression of teaching people from the tutorial through to the end. Like each update makes that whole process way smoother and more fun. But I also think like as players are getting to the more advanced content, I'm hoping that they're going to see the potential more clearly in what can be achieved, right? Like, if you know the mechanics of the game already, in this biome, you're probably like, I could build all sorts of things out of this. And the shops are part of this as well now. So we've changed the shops in all of the biomes to this new format here currently. There's going to be more changes to come, but this shop, it always sells 2 units, it always has a trait, and it has one other kind of thing here that will change contextually based on your party right now. These units here are not like they used to be in shops. These scale based on what's in your party. So these units are way stronger than usual because we have some unusually strong units in here. I won't go into how this is calculated because it would let you game the system too much. But basically, the units you get in shops won't be garbage now, because the thing is, when you want to buy a unit, it has to be good enough to use it now, not to build it up over a couple of rooms or whatever. So this makes shops feel a lot better. It's improved all the biomes in my opinion. And these kind of upgrades that let you target multiple units, like different ones of the same type or different ones of the same element, they make a similar kind of difference where you can have more control via these shops. And this is the general point I'll carry this through to the end of the video about next steps too, but as we introduce more and more variety into the game, we also need to keep a balanced amount of control so that players can have that sense of like authorship over the run, right? It's not fun for crazy stuff to just be happening. It's fun for crazy stuff to happen and you to respond to it meaningfully each time. And this is a fine balance to dial in, basically. So it might be a bit too crazy at times at the moment, but we want you to be able to, in this biome in particular, but in any part of the game, sort of decide, yeah, this is my party, this is my seam that I'm going to exploit in the mechanics and like get traits and get upgrades to lean into that aesthetic. Maybe it won't work, but maybe it will. Maybe you'll beat the boss, and that's exactly like the main mindset I want is people to have, is to think about building a really cool party overall, right? That's kind of the authentic WizardChess experience, is to have the best party possible, even if it means throwing away your favorite unit over and over again. I think I was a little indecisive here. Let's buy... Yeah, I bought that unit and then left. I'm going to a curse deal. Let's see if this is an interesting one. I've got 2 of these. That's funny. All chickens become a random unit. All werehorse units become monks. This is better. Pick this one, me. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's not very good because I have a 000 torty, which is why I go to a trade offer immediately to try and put this in the bin. Yeah. Trade-offs are very useful in the Fae biome because you were going to be generating a lot more like garbage units basically through these interactions, so you can spend those garbage units on something meaningful to you. I think we've now demoed all of the core encounter types in the Fae biome, I'm pretty sure, and I was going to deliberately exclude the boss fight from anything in the devlog because I don't think that, well, there's no point in me spoiling it really, like, but I will spoil part of it, which is there's going to be more to this boss than just what happens on rank C. We're not finished with the end of the game yet, and this biome has a lead up to the end of the game built into it because it's the last biome. But yeah, so this is a soft launch of this. I guess that's what I should say here to like round us out. We want to find out if there are any bugs firstly, which we've already found one with that progression bug, but any bugs with this biome that need to be fixed immediately, any really horrible balance problems, any just things that are not fun or that we can that are like oversights in the design, because we've been playtesting this for quite a while internally, actually months, and we've had most of this ready for months, and I've been very excited to share it, but we wanted to get it to the point where we can get really good feedback from players. So if you try this biome out and you have thoughts about your experience with it, please do a few runs. Don't just do one because it's quite random. But I'd love to hear what everyone thinks of it because we need to dial this in, obviously. It's the craziest one yet. And you know what? I'm just going to click onto the next slide because I'm about to start talking about next steps. Let me tell you about one other thing before we move on. This is just complete inside baseball thing, but we moved all of the content that felt appropriate to do so into a database, a SQLite database in particular, which is shipped with the game files. I'm telling you this because we're in early access and there's no password on this database, so you can snoop through all of this data if you know how to look at a database, and you can modify it if you want, and the game will respect some of those modifications. Some of them might make it crash, so you're on your own there too. But the sorry, I think I just spotted a typo in here, but it doesn't matter. The reason why this is relevant to any players really is if you want to move towards modding to some degree, this might give us a soft degree of modding, although full dynamic modding isn't currently on the roadmap. Maybe if we sell 1 million copies, I'll think better on that. And then we had this in Google Sheets before, so we had a bit of this, but this allows us to do localization, at least in theory, much more effectively than before. So that's not something we currently have a plan for or have made much of a move on, but we're trying to make sure we're in a really good position to do it if and when it becomes a priority for us. So, I mean, these are all leading up to version 1 launch type concerns really, and that's where my mind is starting to go towards. So yeah, here's the changelog. This is on Steam and it's available in the game as always from the title screen. We've pretty much been over all of this. There are some bug fix details down the bottom here that you might be interested in. I'm not sure. I'm not going to talk about them here. But this is the next steps slide. So 0.7.5 is approximately 75% of the way to version 1 if you started at version 0. And that's not too far from where we think we are through this whole process. I might get a bit rambly here. I'm sorry. I'll try and keep it tight. We don't really know when it's going to be done still, right? Because like, when is it done? We've been doing this game for more than 5 years already, and we are just making it as good as we can at every level, at every step of the way, constantly. But we think at this point we know what the scope of this game is, and we think we are starting to understand how it will start. You know, how the start, middle, and end will all flow together, and well, firstly, that's like terrifying after it's been so long doing it that we're like, oh my god, it's finally becoming real. But it's really exciting as well that like the vision we had when we were talking to each other like 5 years ago wasn't exactly this game, but honestly, like it kind of was, and we've kind of done a big part of what we set out to do. But now we have to land it, right? Which is, you know, it's never the easy part. When is the easy part of making anything? It's hard the whole time. Anyway. What I want to talk about here is I've simplified my entire way of thinking about what we're doing from here into these broader categories. There's just ranks A, B, and C for all of the bosses. This basically means more mechanics. Leading up to them, it means more scaling factors in those biomes, so those challenges themselves. It means more units and traits will be unlocked in those areas, and much of that is already planned and designed, and some of it is implemented. But broadly speaking, we want to increase the challenge and give you more control. Those are the principles at play on that thread of thinking. Along with that, we want to promote synergy as much as possible now. We have all these pieces in the game, right? Like, you have traits, you have units, you have augmentations, you have, like, the way the different encounter types are structured on the map, and what order you'll encounter them in, what different resources can be traded for others. And there's lots of interesting ways to create synergistic systems between our existing systems and make more and more advanced ways of building parties that are powerful but specific, and you need more of an understanding to pull them off. Now that we have a lot of this more basic stuff working, I would say, this is where the attention is going from a gameplay and content design point of view, is like, how do we build traits that tie things together, right? Like, what does it mean for a unit who loves dogs, for example, to be in a party with dogs? That's a cool trait. Like, I just made that one up. And these kind of things that seem really specific can become really important if we give them to you only in instances where they can apply. So that's part of it, is context-based rewards will likely fit into that. And that's to do with balance. Lots of what we're doing from now on will be balance. Scaling shops, scaling units, scaling enemies, making sure rewards adjust appropriately, making sure the numbers just don't get too crazy in any given instance. We did, funny story, we did create a unit with 250 attack recently while playing in the Fae Biome. So there is maybe some work to be done there. Let me know if you managed to pull something like that off yourself. And then finally, progression. So I mean, this is like, what kind of video game doesn't have progression and doesn't use it to express depth? This isn't mind-blowing stuff, but like, we want it to be the case that you come in and each rank you're going to be like, the feeling I want you to have as you play WizardChess is you're like, oh, yeah, I know what this game is doing. Like, I've got this. There's not that much to understand. And then you go to the next rank and you're like, this has some things that I don't yet understand going on in it. And for that to be the feeling every rank, for each new opponent, for each new thing you encounter, you should be like, whoa, I didn't realize that was possible, to have that dimension of gameplay affected or varied or become important, and for more subtle elements of the design to be drawn out through that process. So that's very philosophical. I am just prone to being very philosophical, but I think the idea is really, if you make it to the end of the game, then you are a particular kind of player, and you probably share a lot of overlap with myself and Ricky in terms of some of your tastes at that point. So we get to start having fun where we just put in like the silliest ideas at the end point here, when only the players who will appreciate that stuff, hopefully, will encounter them. And that's really liberating for us, because we've had to restrain ourselves a lot, honestly, on some of the earlier biomes. Like, you might feel this when you play them. They are deliberately simple to force you to pay attention to the basic positioning and numerical aspects of combat. And it took a lot of discipline from us as designers, I won't lie. It's fun to put cool stuff in. So I can see I'm about to cross the 30-minute mark. That's about how long I thought this would take. Let's get into the outro, shall we? So, what's my list of things I have to say here? Yes, please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more updates. I'm expecting that we're going to do more rolling updates leading up to... There's no dates here, so I'm not giving anything away here, but like we're planning on doing rolling updates which aren't particularly focused and just evolve the content of the game until we hit a point that we're going to call beta. And beta will be when the game is feature complete, but we are dialing in balance and bugs like entirely at that point. So expect hopefully more, well, somewhat more frequent. I'd still think monthly is likely to be the case. Updates and devlogs, which are just kind of a grab bag of improvements. And then at some point on the horizon, there'll be a much bigger announcement, which I'll make sure to make enough noise about when beta is happening and there's a new level of polish to the whole thing. Please, if any of this was interesting and you don't yet have a copy of the game, please consider buying it. If not, please do consider wishlisting it for when it is ready in version 1. And if you'd like to follow along with the Discord, ask any questions, report any bugs, give your opinion about everything that I've said in this video, join the Discord. You can scan this QR code, it's in the description. And then you can follow the game on Twitter, WizardChess_, me on Twitter, VivaVault, 2PM Studios is the game studio, and we have a mailing list that I never remember to post anything on. So join that if you'd like to be emailed randomly out of the blue. Thank you for making it to the end of another one with me. You might be able to tell I'm a little bit like scattered after doing that. It's just a lot of stuff to discuss. Like this is 6 months of stuff we've been keeping in the pipeline here and getting it ready for everyone. So it's still not like 100% done, but I mean, you got to put it out there and have people play it. So please play it and please tell me what you think of it. I keep looking over where my camera used to be. I'm realizing if you keep being like, why is he doing this so often? It's because I used to have the camera here. I now have it here. I've got to rewire my brain. Anyway, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I will catch you in the next one. Have a great one. Peace out.